Hello and welcome to Pluribus Unum's Fireside Chats. Not as good as FDRs, but hey, it's something. Now, let's begin what is probably going to be the worst month of my YouTube channel for 2026. View count wise at least, but better for me. With that out of the way, let's get right into the news. First, the big news story. Big news story just happened, literally like last night. I was gonna record it last night, but then I decided, nah, I don't feel like it. I watched the finale of a particular TV show, or a Netflix show, wink wink nudge nudge, and it was like 2 hours long, so, you know, I was like, I mean, at this point, why not just go to bed immediately afterwards? And it's a good thing I didn't, because literally, while that happened, the US has invaded Venezuela, captured Nicolas Maduro, and he is now been sentenced in New York, I think? Like, I don't know if it's like he's going to be sentenced in New York or if he's been sentenced in absentia, but like, yeah, he has captured Nicolas Maduro. And of course the neocons are super happy, and we're seeing like a bunch of like lefties kind of like doing the same thing that they always do. You know, a certain faction of left-wingers on Twitter and stuff have basically always had to say like, well, Nicolas Maduro is bad, but it's like, guys, we don't have to do, guys, we don't have to do the game. We don't have to do the, well, yeah, he is bad. But it's like, guys, it's irrelevant to the point. It doesn't matter if Nicolas Maduro was bad or not. This is not going to end with Nicolas Maduro. And Trump has already announced that it's not going to end with Nicolas Maduro. He was like on the news, he was on Fox News, and he was said like, the cartels are running Mexico. I mean, what are we going to do about that? It's like, guys, no shit. He's clearly going to do this kind of stuff. And he's already said that he currently is running, the US will run Venezuela up until a peaceful transition of power will be done, which is never going to happen because Nicolas Maduro, literally right before he got captured, literally, like, if you remember, literally every day prior to the invasion, Nicolas Maduro has literally been handing out guns to the people of Venezuela and saying, take up arms to defend your country. And the insinuation that they're not going to do that is just insane. He's also stated that he is going to, quote unquote, like a while ago, he literally said, like immediately he started, like, saying, Gustavo Petro, cocaine. It's like, yeah, sure. People also try to point out, like, the hypocrisy of, like, but the Epstein files, but Juan Orlando Hernandez. Like, guys, you need to stop doing that. Like, I mean, guys, we have to be upfront. Republicans and conservatives don't care about the hypocrisy. They don't care about the lies. They don't care about that. They know what they're doing. They know they're monsters. They know what they're doing. And again, they're like, we're going to do all this. We're going to run Venezuela until there's a safe transition. But that's the thing. Remember, he literally said, like, the people of Venezuela rise up against the American empire. This ain't going to stop anytime soon. And to people who try to say, like, the people of Venezuela, they don't like Maduro. It's like, I mean, they don't like the U.S. invading them. Fucking, like, you guys are fucking stupid if you think that they think that the U.S. invading them is a good thing. And even then, there is a subsection of the population who obviously likes Maduro. I mean, like, every single person in Venezuela not liking Maduro is just a lie. It's just obvious propaganda. There's a subsection of the population that will literally follow Maduro to the end of the earth. And we're even seeing ways that they're trying to, like, disseminate propaganda to make people around the world, like, think that this is, quote unquote, over. One of the big things I saw was people saying that, like, people, like, it was like this claim that was spreading on social media that Diosdado Sayabo, the like second most powerful man in Venezuela, who's not the vice president, but he's like the head of the Constituent Assembly, who was basically vice president, who was president of Venezuela for a while, and he's also one of the main figures that the U.S. is, like, trying to go after. They're trying to claim, like, he's dead, and he's like, no, he's not dead. He's in the streets of Venezuela, literally calling for people to rise up against the United States empire. It's like, and if, guys, like, I mean, I even saw, like, a funny tweet where it's like, you killed the moderate, now get the radical, and they attribute it to Diosdado Sayabo, because it's like, guys, Diosdado he's, like, I mean, it's the same thing I said about, like, I think I said this about, Maduro at one point, where it's like, you gotta give credit to them, at least they're true believers. Like, they're not gonna leave. Well, I mean, Nicolas Maduro was captured, but you know what I mean, like, they believe in what they say, they believe whatever they're saying, and due to that fact, they ain't leaving no time soon. Like, the only way you're going to get rid of Diosdado is if you kill him, which the U.S. is, of course, going to try and do, but I think he might be more popular among the Venezuelan people than Maduro. Like, Maduro is the figurehead of the bad things. Meanwhile, Diosdado, due to the fact that he's associated with Chavez a lot more, and he's kind of seen, like, not necessarily as an opposition figure, but, like, they literally contemplated in 2018 switching out the ticket to have Diosdado run and not Maduro. And he was also floated as a potential, like, person to run for the PSUV nomination in 2024. You know, before they just decided to flat out rig it. Anyways, let's move on to the next topic, because the next topic is somewhat related, because in Iran, there are some protests going on about the cost of living. And while the Iranian, like, regime has tried to, like, calm down protesters and suppress protesters, leading to a couple of people to die, you know, it's not uncommon for Iran to have that happen, you know. Protests in Iran have led to, you know, deaths before. But, you know, unsurprisingly, the United States has now decided that they're going to step in, with Trump stating that if a single protester gets attacked, then they're going to attack Iran. Well, I mean, it's a little too late for that. Shouldn't you have already attacked them? But I guess he means, like, starting now, like, starting after he makes the threat, if any more protesters die. And meanwhile, I'm like, didn't you crack down on protesters in 2020 after you lost your presidential bid and, like, BLM protesters, and then you, like, tear gassed them and, like, attacked them afterwards, and then you did a whole, like, Bible photo op? Like, this is the dumbest thing. It's like, every single, like, American person, or, like, every single, like, Western person who keeps making they keep saying the thing where it's like, they keep saying, like, oh, we have to do this, because we have to attack all these evil regimes. Like, you guys definitely should not be making these, like, threats. Like, you guys definitely should not be the ones advocating for this kind of stuff. Suppressing protesters means that we have to kill you. Yeah, that's definitely a thing that the United States president should be advocating for. Trafficking drugs all around the world is worth the death sentence. U.S. president, you definitely should be advocating for that. You definitely should be the one saying that. Unrelated, but, like, one of the big weird things I've seen is, like, you know, we still have, like, right-wingers literally say, like, you know, the whole, like, queer rights in Palestine are so bad. Go to Palestine and, like, see what happens. And then using that as justification as, like, we have to, you know, attack them. And it's like, you should definitely, like, Republican Party, you guys should definitely be the ones advocating that if you're not in favor of gay rights, you should be, like, bombed into oblivion. You definitely should be advocating for that. That is the dumbest thing you could even remotely say. I'm sure that won't go over bad for you at any point whatsoever. And I just have to say this, I really have to say this, but, Kamala Harris wouldn't have done this. I do not believe in a single sentence that Kamala Harris would have done this. Like, even if we were to go by the metric of she's just going to do what Biden did, Biden was trying to put us back in the Iran nuclear deal and was literally trying to work with Maduro to ensure a peaceful transition to power through, like, negotiations in order to get their oil. Meanwhile, Trump literally advocated day one that he would do this, this, and this. So, really, I don't understand how this could be, like, confusing to any of you. And all of this is, of course, used as a distraction to bring up the fact, like, the next story, where Mar-a-Lago was literally revealed to have sent teenage workers on house calls to Jeffrey Epstein's mansion. So, like, it's just, like, again, super obvious Donald Trump is a pedophile. Literally, it's like Donald Trump sent teenage workers to the man who fucks teenage girls. So it's like, I mean, you guys like, it even goes so far as to say, like Epstein wasn't a dues-paying member of the club, but Trump told staff to treat him like one. So it's like, he couldn't even make the excuse that, and it says, the house calls reportedly stopped in 2003 when an 18-year-old worker said Epstein pressured her for sex. Trump cut him off from the spa services. Allegedly, like, some people might say, like, oh, well, that's a good thing. Didn't he, like, that means he stopped it after the sex pressure happened. It's like, you really think that's the first one that happened? Like, guys, she's just the first one that spoke out. Or maybe the first one who spoke publicly. I'm not even sure. It's like, there's a chance that she might even just have been the first one to, like, talk about it outside of the trumpet thing. Because, like, that's just how it is. Like, you know, Like, it's like, sure, in the private, they might have said something, but, like, in public, like, saying it publicly is a little bit different. Like, when, like, everybody knew Brian Peck fucked children when that whole arrest warrant thing happen, but they didn't know who he tried to fuck until Drake Bell came forward to explain what happened. Like, that's how, like, sexual assault in Hollywood really comes about. Like, it's like, it only really comes out when people, like, speak publicly outside of the circles. If they're still inside of the circles are going to keep quiet. Especially considering Trump literally has multiple sexual assault allegations against him, so it's like, of course, he'd keep quiet, so maybe it's just that she was the first one who spoke publicly about it. And it's so amazing that literally all of this is going on, and literally no one can do anything about it because they're too scared. Like, I mean, I genuinely just want someone to, like, literally do the impeachment trial regarding the Epstein files, because I want it to be on the record that a bunch of Republicans will literally just support pedophilia if it means it's their guy. Because it's really what it is. Impeachment trials are, like, terrible because impeachment trials are just going to be partisan. We have ultimately seen that many times over. An impeachment trial is only going to be partisan. No person will ever truly hold their own party accountable 100%. Crimes of a Democrat they'll always, like, not always, but, like, a lot of Democrats will turn the other way when it turns with the Democrats. A thing will be scandalous when the other party does it, but not so scandalous when the person of your party does it. And you truly see that with literally every single impeachment trial that happens in the US. Literally, like, for Johnson's impeachment, it was literally like party line vote. Both borderline, like 10 Republicans flipped, but otherwise, it was basically a party line vote. And that was probably the fairest impeachment trial. The impeachment of Bill Clinton, basically a party line vote. Very, like, with literally very few members to, like, flip across the aisle. The Trump impeachment, basically, like, Trump's first impeachment, basically a party line vote. Once it got to the Senate, it became a basically party line vote. And the second impeachment trial, yeah, basically a party line vote. It literally doesn't, like, I mean, literally, it doesn't matter. If it doesn't matter, like, I think we need to, like, I think we actually do need to, like, have it so that the impeachment trial is, like, we need to change how the impeachment process goes, because really, if we just leave it at the hands of the members of Congress or whatever, then it's just going to do more stuff like that. But very lately, there's also another thing that apparently Trump might be trying to, like, I mean, Trump is obviously trying to distract us from all of, like, the child fucking stuff, but, like, this also seems to be another thing that Trump is trying to make us forget about, and it's the fact that he is fucking, I'm just saying, there's a reason why a lot of people's bingo cards on what will happen in 2036 includes a certain event happening to Donald Trump. Because he is a very unhealthy man. Like, there's an article that literally talks about, like, the signs of an aging Trump emerge, and it talks about, like, just overall, like, all of the terrible things that are going on with Donald Trump's health. Like, people have been noticing signs, you know, like, there's, like, one time where, like, earlier the year, or, like, last year, he was saying something like, oh, you guys can't make fun of me because I have, like, fat legs, my circulation's not really going well with my legs, so now he has to wear compression socks everywhere he goes. Everybody's been very quick to point out, like, his hands have strange discolorations that happen every so often. And every so often, they'll notice a hole on his hand, and it's like, what the heck is this? And it's like, oh, I was just getting, like a precautionary MRI, and it's like, what? That is not a thing. You don't get an MRI as like, oh, well, maybe something. An MRI is not something that you... Well, I mean, I guess Donald Trump says he's rich. He could potentially be doing that for a preventative measure, but, like, you don't do those kinds of medical procedures just as a cautionary measure. Also showing, like, you know, Donald Trump's, like, mental health has obviously been declining to an extent. Like, we're used to Trump speak, but, like, he's been, like, just really falling off the deep end. And apparently, he's at the point where he is taking aspirin, apparently way more aspirin than you're supposed to take. Now, aspirin is, of course, like, a very typical drug, you know. It's like a non-steroid, like, anti-inflammatory drug that's usually used to reduce pain, fever, inflammation, that kind of stuff. But it's also used to prevent blood clots, which is a thing that, of course, given his prior explanation of, like, needing to wear compression socks everywhere he goes, seems to be a problem there, too. Like, and the way he describes it is very obviously, like, fucking stupid. Listen to this. listen to this. Like they say that doctors are telling him to lower his aspirin dose, but he says no, he's not going to do that. He's very superstitious, and he says, quote, "They say aspirin is good for thinning out the blood, and I don't want thick blood pouring through my heart. I want nice thin blood pouring through my heart." Does that make any sense? No. And it's a big problem because, like, with super thin blood, like, it's causing him to bruise very easily. Like that time where they also pointed, like, since he's, like, old now, it's like he's getting the old delicate skin. Where, like, he did a high five Christy Noam, and her ring, like, punctured his skin. And listen to this. This is the part that everybody has been covering is the part where they go over his diet. Because Donald Trump's diet, as we all know, like, if you know anything about Donald Trump, like, he's fat and he's ugly and he's a pedophile. But, like, one of the main things about his, like, he's, like, very well known for his, like, unhealthy diet. Like, because if you remember, like, Donald Trump was in, like, when he was a celebrity, he was, like, fucking every single fast food commercial. He was in commercials for McDonald's, he was in commercials for Domino's, he was in commercials for Pizza Hut, he was doing commercials for, like, every single fast food industry known to man. And one of the common memes about Donald Trump's, like, diet and stuff is that he drinks Diet Coke every time. Like, his favorite soda is Diet Coke, which contains a lot of aspartame, which is not going to be good for, like, you know, possible getting cancer, but, you know, that's beside the point. Also, neither is the massive other unhealthiness that's going to lead to, like, more causes of, like, heart disease and cancer. But I also remember that during that shutdown where, like during the shutdown, he couldn't pay the White House staff to, like, cook for him. So he literally, like, had, like, because he was going to invite, like, some celebrities to, like, go to the White House. And then what ended up happening is that he had to, like, order a massive ton of McDonald's for him. And a lot of the, like, press junkets and, like, photos of him, like, in his jet and, like, whatever with, like, other politicians, he's sitting there eating McDonald's. McDonald's is, like, his favorite meal. And literally, listen to this. It says, okay. Trump said he hasn't had many changes in his diet. In a podcast interview in October, Republican National Committee Chairman Joe Grutters described being shocked by Trump's eating habits when they traveled together during the campaign. While flying to a campaign event, according to Grutters, Trump consumed French fries, a McDonald's quarter-pounder hamburger, a Big Mac, and a Filet-O-Fish. And apparently, in one sitting. Like, that was just in one sitting. Do you know how many calories that is? I did the math. I don't have the, like, exact number on the top of my head. I think I'm gonna have it in my calculator. Yeah, right here. Literally, I just did the math, where it's like, I don't remember, like, I mean, like, one of them is 417 calories, one of them is 563 calories, one of them is 380 calories, and I think, I didn't know exactly, they didn't say the size french fries he had, but I'm just going to be fair and say that he got a medium fry. I'm just going to be a little fair to him and I say that he got a medium fry. And that's 320 calories, and that's 1,680 calories in one meal. Like, the daily recommended is, like, usually, like, around 2,000 calories for everything you have. Granted, Donald Trump is 6'3", allegedly. So, I mean, he's 6'3", so, like, so maybe he, like, I think like you have to, like, I mean, when you're tall, you have to eat, like, a little bit more, I think. So, like, very clearly he's got to, like, change that up a little bit. But, like, even then, you're supposed to be, like, doing, like, healthy food for that, not, like, unhealthy food. So people are expecting that this nightmare might end sooner than you think, saying that in 2028, Vance might have the advantage of incumbency. But anyways, with that out of the way, let's move on to the main topic of this video. We're going to be starting this series off with a banger. Well, I don't know if necessarily with a banger, but, like, we're starting off the foreign election, like, podcast very early on, because this election's coming up pretty soon, so figure why not get this one out of the way. Alright, so let us talk a little bit about Ugandan politics. But first, let's talk a little bit about Ugandan history. Why? Like, what's the prelude of all the situations leading up to this point? Like first, let's start off way back. Like most African nations, you know, it's just, this is just a common part of history. Like most African nations, Uganda used to be colonized. They were colonized by the British. But one day, Uganda stopped being colonized. But the way Uganda stopped being colonized wasn't through a revolution. It was through, like, There's like two ways to become like decolonized. One is like through the revolution, obviously, and then the other one is through like the time period kind of moves on, and you kind of like the leaders of the country would negotiate to try and like decolonize, and that seems to be what happened with Uganda. And due to the fact that that's how colonization ended, it made it so that the Kabaka of Uganda, the king of Uganda, Mutesa II, was still in control of Uganda, and he was super friendly with the British. So basically, it was just like, on paper, we are an independent nation, but basically the same situation remains. Like, basically, the only thing that changed was that Uganda was now technically an independent nation. All that changed when the Prime Minister of Uganda, Milton Obote, started leading a movement against Mutesa, which ultimately deposed him, and he would implement some left-wing policies in Uganda, leading to a brief economic stagnation and troubling relationships with the West, which ultimately led to the Western nations to get friendly with figures who opposed Obote. And one nation in particular that was not really fans of Obote was Israel, who helped lead a coup against Obote and help instill a man by the name of Idi Amin, who would also gain some nice titles like the Butcher of Uganda and, most interestingly, the Hitler of Africa. Let's just keep that satiated. Idi Amin was wildly known for his massive human rights abuses when he was leader of Uganda, particularly the mass expulsion of Asians in Uganda and the murder of 100 to 500,000 people. And the thing that was so weird was that even afterwards, the West didn't even gain an ally, because almost immediately, Idi Amin became friendly to nations who were opposed to the West. And in Africa particularly, people like Mobutu Sese Seko and Gaddafi. Strangely, he even became I don't know if he became a supporter of Palestine, but Palestine soon became a supporter of him. Well, okay, the PLO became a supporter of him, so, take that information what you will. But the big mistake that Idi Amin made was keeping Obote alive, who would move to Tanzania along with many other Ugandan exiles, and would team up with Julius Nyerere to launch the War of Kagera. The war literally had the war literally had the PLO on the same side as Idi Amin, but ultimately they lost, and Obote came back into power. But the war had left Uganda unstable, and even as Obote was trying to get things back on track and trying to stabilize the country and try and reinforce his power, there were concerns that the elections that reaffirmed his place as president of Uganda were rigged, culminating in another war, a very bad war, the Ugandan Bush War, I believe it's called, and it was so bad that both sides were accused of doing various human rights abuses. This war was also very unsuccessful for Obote, which led to him to go to exile again, leading to the rise of a new president of Uganda, a man by the name of Yoweri Museveni, who has remained in office for 39 years, in his time scrapping presidential term limits and presidential age limits. He is now 80, and he is currently, I guess to spoil it, he's currently seeking another term in office, leading to many journalists to say that at best, his administration can be described as an illiberal democracy, but more accurately, the government of Uganda can be described as a competitive dictatorship or a competitive authoritarian government. Especially when you see how he handles the political opposition to him. He's cracked down on the free press, making up a bunch of bogus allegations about them trying to do a coup against him, because as we all know, cooing the president is such a bad thing. Am I right, Yoweri? No one would ever do anything as horrible as cooing the incumbent president for baseless accusations of stuff. Right? Yoweri? You'd never do that, nah. And don't even get me started on how he handles, other political opposition. That's just how he handles the journalists, about the people who actually, run and try to make him lose power. He threatens to murder one of his political rivals very openly, literally saying, he deserved to be 6 feet under. And then he also tortured another one of his political rivals. and doing such horrible things like calling his opposition gay. I'm not even kidding. He literally calls his opposition homosexuals. Now you might say, okay, so what? Like, he calls his opposition gay, so what? Yeah, well, that would actually be, like, in the West, you know, calling them gay, that, whoa, scary. But in Uganda, that's actually a bad thing, even worse thing, because in Uganda, the punishment for being an aggravated homosexual is death. And before anybody in the West wants to make a claim of some kind of moral superiority, the Ugandan anti-gay movement was spearheaded by United States Christian missionaries. You know, basically all of African evangelicalism being inspired by Westerners trying to, like, force their religious beliefs on Africa. And, unsurprisingly, Museveni keeps his power through massive electoral fraud. Literally all 5 of his election bids being accused of having at least some form of irregularities. And it seems like the primary issue of this campaign really is just, do you support or oppose Museveni? And with that, let's just get into the candidates, and since we're talking about him a lot, why don't we start with Museveni, who is the incumbent president of Uganda, running with the National Resistance Movement. Now, the National Resistance Movement is a very interesting party just by doing an analysis of their ideology. Like, go to the Wikipedia page and literally, like, in the box, it literally says, like, under ideology, historical, Maoism, socialism until 1986. And then their current ideology, neoliberalism since 1986, economic liberalism, social democracy, self-declared, right-wing populism, Pan-Africanism, social conservatism, national conservatism, and nationalism. Some might claim that that is, like, a bit confusing, but it's actually not as confusing as you think. You see, a lot of these, like, movements that are, like, there are a lot of movements that are, like, in, like, quote-unquote socialist circles that do just espouse, like, these kind of policies. You see, a lot of these, like, extremely, like, nationalistic movements, when they don't really care about, like, the ideology behind them. It's a similar thing, I'll use it, there's, like, the Cambodian People's Party, which, like, at one point used to be, like, a Marxist-Leninist, like, communist party, and now it is a Cambodian Nationalist Conservative Party, because inevitably, like, when they get to the power, it's like, they want to keep that power, and as such, they just kind of truly just forget, like, their actual ideology. The Sandinistas, at one point, used to be, like, a revolutionary socialist party, but do they give a shit about revolutionary socialism now? No. And, like, as was kind of unfortunately predicted by Richard Nixon, what happened with the Soviet Union, when the Soviet Union fell, when their, like, ideological, like, foundation of communism fell, but what was left to take its place, like, what ended up taking its place was literally just, they just kept all of the bad things of their regime, but dropped any of the good things that came with them being called communists. It's the same reason why Museveni, like, cared about, like, election rigging when it was allegedly going on to oppose him, but not election rigging and, like, coups and stuff when he was the one doing it, because ultimately his power was all about him. It was all about him. It wasn't about, like, anything else. There's no broader sense of an ideology. He just wants control, and he's exerting his control however he sees fit. But now let's look at some of the opposition candidates. First, we have Mubarak Munyagwa, who is a former member of parliament running with a political party that he created called the Common Man's Party, which is an agrarian center-right party that takes its namesake from Milton Obote's Common Man's Charter, which is, like, the sort of, like, ideological framework that he tried to be like, oh, I'm going to, like, base my ideology on this. The next candidate is Kansibante Robert, who is an entrepreneur running with the National Peasants Party, which is a long-dormant political party that was reborn in 2025. That's goal is to liberate Uganda to focus on the needs of farmers, teachers, boda riders, and youth activists. Boda riders are, like, people who, like, ride bikes. Like, you know, like, in a lot of, like, quote-unquote third world countries, like, they have people who ride bikes and then, like, you get on the bike and then you ride with them. And, like, you know, basically the equivalent of, like, a cab driver or a rickshaw. You know, people whose like, job is to transport other people. And this party is clearly, like, at least a slightly bit lefty-coded. Not necessarily lefty, as far as I'm able to tell, but, like, they're at least lefty-coded. given their, like, electoral base and, like, their, like, name. Their next candidate is Elton Joseph Mabirizi, who's a Christian activist and a 2016 presidential candidate. He is running under the Conservative Party, which is kind of both a generic, it's kind of like a generic right-wing party compared to all the others, but due to what is considered conservative in Africa, there are some elements that are a little bit confusing on what this party stands for. It has both advocated for government decentralization, typical right-wing spiel in a lot of places, but has also advocated in favor of monarchism due to the fact that they admire so-called traditional leaders, and traditional leaders in Africa are typically like people who would be considered kings or whatever. But it's also claimed to advocate for things like social justice and environmentalism, clearly mostly to paint itself in contrast with Museveni. The next candidate is Frank Bulria, who is a teacher running under the Revolutionary People's Party, which is a centrist, federalist, and anti-corruption party. Next is Mugisha Muntu, who is a former military officer and 2021 presidential candidate, running with the Alliance for National Transformation, a broadly center-right party. Next candidate is Nandala Mafabi, who is an accountant and lawyer, running with the Forum for Democratic Change, a secular liberal conservative party that was historically the main opposition party in Uganda. Historically, not currently, because very recently that has changed, which leads us to, if you pay attention to the thumbnail, you know that there are a lot of small people on the thumbnail, and yes, the people that I've listed thus far are the small people, the ones who, but there's only one person who is bigger on the thumbnail than these guys, and is even rivaling Museveni, and that is Bobby Wine, a Ugandan singer, activist, and the 2021 presidential runner-up. He is running under the National Unity Platform, a progressive political party that has effectively become the main political opposition in Uganda. And due to the fact that Bobby Wine has become like the main opposition figure, and probably one of the most prominent opposition figures in a while, he's clearly gotten a lot of shit as the leader of the opposition, being arrested multiple times during his prior presidential campaign and prior to his presidential career period, being arrested and tortured in 2018, and his bodyguard, Francis Senteza, being killed by the military police while he was trying to save a journalist. The National Unity Platform is like a pretty generic, it's like progressive, social democrat, social liberal, center left, it's like a pretty generic party. So it's not like a socialist party. It's just like a more generic, I guess for lack of a term, populist left to an extent. It's more like anti-authoritarian and because I guess it's just because the policies that Museveni has been doing have now shifted so radically to the right that basically anything that is slightly left of center is now considered like a prime opposition. Although this did lead to one element of controversy to an extent, because in Western leftist circles, there's been some slight controversies regarding him, because one day on Twitter he posted a video. He posted a video interview that he had done. Or I don't know if it was a video interview or if he just posted a photo of the interview that he did, where he's I had a talk with a wonderful man who is leading the happiness of the people of his country, and I'm just being a little vague about who it is just to build up to it. And the person in question was Juan Guaido of Venezuela. And that led to a little bit of controversy about Bobby Wine, and now people were saying that was proof that Bobby Wine was a Western-backed puppet leader against Museveni. And I'm gonna take a while, I guess, since this is probably more of the tanky people, probably the people who looked at Museveni and is he's friends with whatever person who is not Western backed. So clearly it's but guys, you need to understand a little bit of the context as to why Bobby Wine did that. You could criticize Bobby Wine for doing that, but you gotta analyze it from the perspective of Bobby Wine. Bobby Wine had literally gone through a authoritarian and 100% rigged election against him in Uganda in 2021. Like, Bobby Wine maintains that he won that election. That he literally is like, there's honestly no ifs, ands, or buts about me that I think I won the election because of all the momentum that I had in my campaign. And seeing, like, the previous allegations of, like, Museveni's electoral fraud, he's, of course, like, you know, raised questions about their electoral fraud as well. So, when Juan Guaido makes the same accusations, of course he's going to be a little bit more like, yes, cool, let's go, Juan Guaido. Especially considering, if you remember, Juan Guaido identified as a social democrat. He used to be, like, his party was social democrat. So I'm going to take a wild guess that Bobby Wine probably didn't do enough research into Juan Guaido. And Bobby Wine hasn't really acknowledged this. All he did was delete that particular video. So I think he was going to take a wild guess and say that he probably at least did a little bit more research afterwards and was like, okay, maybe not, like, maybe this particular movement wasn't necessarily the best idea. And as for events in the campaign, there's only one event that I was able to really, like, find of the campaign. And it was, like, an event that happened in December 6th of 2025 when Bobby Wine and a group of his supporters were attacked by security forces during a campaign event in Gulu, which very much indicates that Museveni's up to his same old shenanigans, and this election is probably not going to be as fair as it probably should be. And we could see a little bit more evidence of that when we go into the polling, which I also had to look for. It wasn't like a Wikipedia where it's like, oh, all these polls from all these pollsters are on this particular thing. I had to actually, like, really look and find any form of polls that it really could happen. And even then, I saw some issues when I was looking for the polls, and there's a lot of manipulation of the polls. Like, one of the big things that happens, like, random online publications on, like, Twitter, Facebook, and stuff will randomly post a poll that claims that one candidate is winning over the other, but there's really no evidence that the poll is even remotely true. There's a website, an AI-controlled website called UgandaPolls.com, or I think it's UgandaPolls.com, but, like, it's Uganda polls, and you can literally just look at, like, you call, like, 2026 polls in Uganda, and you'll get, like, Uganda polls, and it's like a website that literally is like, I am run by AI, and it has a poll on the site, allegedly from a site called, it's allegedly from a reliable pollster, but they don't link it. They don't link the pollster, and they don't link the poll in question. So it's just like, is it a real poll? I don't know. Like, it seems like I just can't find any polls. The only poll, I did find one. There's only one poll that I found that I can kind of see being a somewhat realistic poll. And it was a poll conducted last October by Marsh Africa, which showed Museveni winning with 64% of the votes. And the only reason why I can verify that particular poll is real is because it was published in a website that is controlled by the government of Uganda, which means that this poll is probably a real poll, but it is also probably being manipulated by the Ugandan government. I mean, I don't know if the Ugandan government has, like, done that, or if it's like, that's a poll that someone did in Uganda, and then since there's a poll that had Museveni winning, they're just like, okay, we'll publish this one. And conclusion and support, well, similar situation to the last Nigerian election, I would say that Bobby Wine probably is a good change for Uganda, and it's a change that the people of Uganda sorely need. But the problem is, I'm not sure that we're going to be getting that change, unfortunately. If the election was free and fair, Bobby Wine would win, much in the same way in the Nigerian election. If the election was not rigged, it would probably be, like, fair. Like, Peter Obi probably would have won very easily. But it seems like it is a very, very, very unlikely. It's a very unlikely scenario that, I mean, it's very unlikely that that's going to happen. So, yeah, Museveni's probably going to win. Unfortunate, and he's probably going to govern until he dies. So, very unfortunate. Hopefully, the next couple of podcasts will be better, because this one wasn't necessarily done last minute, but it was just, yeah, this one was definitely not made to be this is made to be the beginning one, the first one of the year, which is going to be problematic. But anyways, Thanks for watching this video. Be sure to like, comment, share, subscribe, and click the bell to notify when a future video comes out. And if you need more content from me, consider supporting me on Patreon.